Hello again, I'm Robert Fitton. In this video, I want to take you back and share some memories of working at my very first commercial radio station. I'd been in college radio for a couple of years at this point, but my first time at an actual commercial, real, whatever you want to call it, radio station was 1995. I started there as an intern through the college program and then went to weekend overnights and was working on the weekend overnight, eventually working my way up later that year to full-time overnights during the week. This was back, if you can imagine, when radio stations actually had a live person 24/7. You had to operate the CD players. It wasn't like it was, just a bunch of files playing in automation like it became later. So you had to be there. Somebody had to be there 4 o'clock in the morning, and that would have been me. Now, I don't want to spend too much time going into that before I start getting into the music, so let me just start right away. AC/DC, Ballbreaker. This is always going to hold a special place in my heart, even though most people might oh, look, there's an AC/DC guitar pick in there. Even though most people might think this is just another bland AC/DC album, that sounds just like all the other ones that came out around this time, and it certainly does. But to me, this was, I think, the first time I ever got a CD before the general public. And I was so excited to get this because I think it was around my birthday, September of 95. I'd gotten a lot of free CDs and free concert tickets before that. But I think this was one, or if not the one of the first ones I got before it was actually released. And I felt like such a cool guy. Like, I've got this before anybody else, before all the AC/DC fans who can't buy this until another 5 days or whatever it was. I've got this. Here I am in my little studio apartment with no furniture and a bed in the wall. That's how I was living in those days. But you know what? I've got an AC/DC Ballbreaker CD before anybody else can get their hands on this. So that was really cool to have this. And every time I see AC/DC Ballbreaker, that's what I really think about. As far as the music on here, the big song off here was Hard as a Rock, which is a 4-minute song about having an erection. The lyrics could have easily been, hey, I've got an erection. She gives me an erection, I have an erection. That's Hard as a Rock. Cover You in Oil was another single. Blah, I mean, the Ballbreaker was, I think, the only other single that we played off this. And, yeah. You are a Ballbreaker, do 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 do, breaking walls, breaking balls, or whatever. We had this running joke at the radio station where we would just rhyme breaking balls with other things. Breaking balls, taking calls. It's ridiculous, but anyway. Ballbreaker from AC/DC, special to me just because this was one of the first times I ever got a CD. Before the general public and a pre-release. But it's pretty generic AC/DC. The Honey Roll has a bit of a rev up at the end of it, so that's they get a little bit of energy there. But mostly this does not sound like they're having very much fun. It doesn't sound like very energetic. Very, very mid-tempo. Just very much like they're just going through the motions, I guess. Recorded well, especially the drums. I love that real clear drum sound, and Phil Rudd is back with them on this. But the lyrics sound like they're written by like an AC/DC AI program, which I know they didn't have back then, but it's your usual just kind of AC/DC cliches. Foo Fighters debut. Remember this? This was back when we would give Dave Grohl the benefit of the doubt, I guess, because he was just coming off Nirvana and the tragedy of how all that ended. Now he's got his own group, the Foo Fighters. Let's check this out. I remember I did my very first radio remote, where you go out somewhere because, a store or an event or something is paying you to go there and broadcast or actually do breaks that are recorded, and you play them during the commercials to kick off the commercial stop sets like twice an hour. That's, you probably do 4 of them. You're there for 2 hours. That's how that usually works. But I did my first one at Circuit City, and it was only because the person who was originally scheduled to do it couldn't do it. Last minute for whatever reason. And so, let's just throw the overnight guy out there. So I got my very first remote at Circuit City in Springfield, and this is one of the Circuit Cities that actually sold CDs. So I thought, I'm going to be really cool. I'm going to talk about the great CD selection they have here, and I'm going to buy a CD live, on the air and impress everybody. and I bought the Foo Fighters because I couldn't get this for free for whatever reason. But yeah, so that's why I see Foo Fighters' first album. I always think of me doing that little stunt and buying it on the air. And they have such a great selection. And I basically just ended up getting made fun of for it. You know, next remote's at a car dealership. Are you going to buy a car here too? No, I'm not going to buy a car. This Is a Call was the very first song we played off of this. The first 3 songs are actually the singles. The first 4 are actually the singles. I'll Stick Around. Big Me, which I have the promo for that, which includes a cover version of the Ace Frehley song from his Kiss solo album called Ozone, which is really cool. They do a cover of that, but yeah, I'll Stick Around, Big Me, and then Alone and Easy Target wasn't really on a lot. That was just kind of here and gone. But I really liked Big Me. I'll Stick Around was okay. It's more like a loud pop album, you know. And then you find out later on, you know, you open this up and you're like, Foo Fighters, what are these guys all about? And, you know, it's got a picture of the band here, you know, pictures of them playing live, and then a picture of the band here. But you notice that there are no credits on this for any band. Then you find out later that there is no band. Dave Grohl's playing all the instruments. I think Greg Doley from the Afghan Wigs is on a song. It might be Ecstatic, maybe. Plays guitar on that. But yeah, this is just a Dave Grohl thing. He just recorded everything and just made some cassettes and passed them out. And I guess Capitol Records thought it was good enough to release. And that was the beginning of the Foo Fighters. We played a lot of Foo Fighters the next 2 or 3 albums after this. And I'm not really versed on the later Foo Fighters. I think the last song I heard from them was like Times Like These from like 2001 or 2002. So I don't really know much about later Foo Fighters, but that first Foo Fighters CD, pretty cool stuff. And if you're rolling your eyes like, oh, Dave Grohl, God, you know, this was before, obviously, it's their debut. This was before he was everywhere and on every Grammys show and every whatever. And he's the nicest guy in rock, and now he's cheating on his wife and whatever's going on now. By the way, everybody's cheating on their wife or husband. That's pretty much radio, rock, the whole music business. That's what happens. Sun Volt, Uncle Tupelo had broken up, and so we get Sun Volt and Wilco coming out. They were competing basically in 1995, and I was right there for it. I worked with a guy who was obsessed with everything Uncle Tupelo, Wilco, Sun Volt, Golden Smog, all the offshoots, had all the CDs, had bootleg cassettes of concerts, went to every concert. I was there when he was there at the very final show at Mississippi Nights for Uncle Tupelo, Mississippi Nights. First of all, I should mention, if you didn't know, I am from the area that a lot of the members are from. You know, Belleville, Illinois is like 20 minutes from here, 15 minutes from here. So we grew up in the same area as these guys. So they were like a hometown band. And the St. Louis music scene really wasn't, it's not a thing, really. There aren't a lot of groups that come from here, and the people that are from here that are from years and years ago, like Chuck Berry and Tina Turner and Miles Davis, who's actually from Alton, Illinois, and Michael McDonald, who's actually from Ferguson, Missouri, and, you know, it just goes on and on. They're not really celebrated a lot, for whatever reason. St. Louis just does not have a music scene. And so these guys, you know, finally on major labels, you know, Warner Brothers, and we're going to see what they can do. And I like them both, the Sun Volt and the Wilco debuts. Jay Farrar, you know, you had to be, it was like that thing where you have to be, you know, into the Beatles or the Stones. You have to be into NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys. You have to be whatever those 2 werewolves and vampires on that Twilight thing. Yeah, you have to be in team 1 or team 2. You have to be team Jay or team Jeff, you know, and the guy I'm talking about who was obsessed with these guys, he wouldn't do that. He was on both teams somehow. But yeah, Jay Farrar going to Belleville West, class of 85, shout out. So did the drummer, Mike Hydern. And yeah, this is, I mean, I just remember, just there was so much of these played. And then all the albums before that. But when these were out, it was like, oh, wow, you know, I have a chance to like play these guys on a commercial station and make them popular, and everybody's going to listen to their, wow, and they really didn't really get played on the radio that much anywhere else. But one thing I always loved about Sun Volt and Wilco is, for me, and you know, the area I grew up in, they would always put references to local things in their songs, and I would be like, I know exactly where they're talking about. Like, Tear-Stained Eye on here talks about Saint Genevieve, hold back the water. You know, because saints don't care about my tears or whatever. But they're not talking about the Saint Genevieve. They're talking about the city of Saint Genevieve in Saint Genevieve, Missouri, which has a huge levee. It's right by the Mississippi River. That's what's holding back the water. So I'm like, Saint Genevieve. You know how Saint Genevieve certainly doesn't get talked about in the song. 10 Second News talks about driving down 44 past the beach known for cancer, and that is Times Beach. So I as soon as they said the beach known for cancer, I know exactly what they're talking about. And I've driven down 44. You know, at one point I was driving down 44 every day. So it was great to hear these guys talk about local things. And it's on here too, Casino Queen. That's even the name of the song on here. That is not some person. That is the Casino Queen, the place. And their slogan was always, they've got the loosest slots in town. So the Casino Queen's got a loose slot, everybody. But yeah, Wilco, AM, Must Be High, and Box Full of Letters were the two singles off here that we would play. But there's other great songs. A great steel guitar on I Thought I Held You, and Passenger Side. Man, we played that on our specialty show all the time just because that's such a, you know, fun song about, you know, sitting in the passenger side and the driver's falling asleep, and don't swerve like that. You're going to make me spill my beer in the passenger side, and I'm going to get my own driver's license back when my court date comes up in July or whatever. But yeah, this was back when, you know, everything was so fresh and new. And I know Sunvolt's still around doing stuff on more of an independent thing. You don't really hear about them a lot, though, anymore. Wilco has turned into this obnoxious juggernaut of a band. Jeff Tweedy's a complete... I don't even want to get into that, but I'm not into Jeff Tweedy anymore. And Wilco, now a Chicago band. So they've totally abandoned... You know, St. Louis, as far as modern music, had the one thing, and now we don't have that anymore because Jeff Tweedy, Wilco, is a Chicago band. Thanks a lot, asshole. I'm done talking about that. But Ozzy Osbourne, Ozzmosis, also came out when I was in my first year on radio on WQLZ, by the way. I don't think I've mentioned that yet. WQLZ, solid rock. So if you grew up in the Springfield area or just were in the Springfield area, Springfield, Illinois, in the 90s, I was Rocky, by the way. That's me, if you haven't put those things together yet. I was told in college that when you go into radio, you absolutely, positively have to have a radio name. You can't use your real name, which is total bullshit. But I didn't know any better, so I came up with Rocky, so that's what I was. And I chose Rocky because it has the word rock in it, and I wanted to be in rock radio, and I was fortunate enough to start out there and then live the dream, like, from the jump, you know, just boom, right in it. Didn't have to start off at some podunk nonsense AM station and work my way up, and now I'm playing smooth jazz, now I'm playing adult. No, I start, bam, right in rock radio in my early 20s. Talk about living the dream, man. I was. Active rock, too. I mean, that's the one with all the partying. We were an insane party radio station. We were outrageous. We were everywhere. Everybody loved us. We were notorious. I mean, it was incredible to be that age, that time, starting off in radio. But I chose Rocky because, like I said, it had the word rock in it, but also because it means different things to different people. Some people, you'd say your name is Rocky, they might picture the movie Boxer, like Sylvester Stallone. They might picture the real boxer, like Rocky Marciano. They might picture Rocky Horror Picture Show. They might picture Rocky the Flying Squirrel. So you got all these different audiences relating to Rocky. But anyway, I started using my real name as soon as I got off of that, and I've been Robert Fithin ever since. But yeah, so Ozzy Osbourne's Ozzmosis, you know, it's so cool to, like, I'm going to be playing Ozzy's brand new album. It's just... Man, is there going to be something wild on here like Crazy Train or Over the Mountain or Bark at the Moon or, you know, I don't know, or Mr. Crowley or... No, none of that is on here. Nothing. I mean, obviously those songs aren't on here, but nothing like that is on here. This is a very mid-tempo album. Zakk Wylde on guitar, but a lot of the guitar sound is very kind of watery and wavery. That wah, 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 wah. Not really wah-wah, but just kind of this... Kind of like I said, like a watery kind of guitar sound. He does rock out on a couple of songs in here. My Jekyll Doesn't Hide is probably the highlight on here as far as hard rock, Ozzy, what you want. But we never played that. That wasn't a single that was serviced to radio. The first one was Perry Mason. That's the name of the song. Okay. That comes out and I'm just like, wait, what? Why is Ozzy Osbourne singing about Perry Mason, the old courtroom black and white TV drama my dad used to watch with Raymond Burr? What? And it was just like so completely puzzling. It was just kind of like, what is he doing? What, Perry Mason? I can just imagine people younger than I am hearing that and going, ooh, who's Perry Mason? Is that like Aleister Crowley, or is that like some kind of... No, it's an old TV show. And I guess they must have played it in England or something. I don't know. That was just a very weird song. I Just Want You was another single. It didn't get played as much. It's all right. I mean, I guess. See You on the Other Side was the big one that we used to play all the time on this. And I just thought it was just kind of there. I mean, I know a lot of people love that song because it's about, you know, a tribute to somebody who's passed away. A lot of people who had a friend that had passed away would want to hear it for their friend. And just like, hey, you know, you're gone, but I'll see you, you know, on the other side, you know, basically. So I get the sentiment of that, but I just never care. I'm not into mid-tempo Ozzy, you know. I want hard rock Ozzy. I want bam, you know, crank it Ozzy. I don't want hold me tight, I'm falling. You know, I don't. But his voice is great on here, though. This is probably one of the last albums he did where his voice is in fine form. I mean, certainly better than the albums he was putting out at the end there. Where, you know, it's all this process and all this kind of, you know, but yeah, Ozzmosis. I remember, just the singles off this weren't the best. And like I said, some of the album I mean, he's got that My Little Man song on here, which a lot of the rockers were doing, the older rockers were doing, like around this time. They got to come out with that song about their kid, you know, my son. And I don't know, I'm not a parent, so I don't get into that, but they're never good. The songs are never good. This one isn't. Go to sleep, little man. Don't you weep, little man. You know, just not even very heartfelt. Just kind of cliched lyrics. You can definitely tell that these songs are much into the No More Tears. He's just gone further into that, like I said, lighter stuff, mid-tempo, you know, that kind of thing. Nothing just, you know, blasting out kind of thing. Geezer Butler's on bass on this, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. That's a great thing about this. But, yeah, I mean, good production, good sound, but I'm not into the kind of the guitar effect on this at all. I did meet Ozzy a couple of years later when he was on one of the Ozzfests. And so that was great, you know. He's walking by all of us on the radio. We're all kind of in a line backstage. And it's, oh, fuck, Ozzy's coming. Oh, my God. All right, everybody, fucking act cool. All right, cool. And so he walks past me and he says something to me. You know, whatever. And I'm like, oh shit. I have no idea what he just said. And I'm the guy that usually can understand people that other people can't understand. You know, just because I've studied languages and dialects and things like that. And I've always been really into that. So I can understand people with foreign accents and things a little better than most people. I could not understand a word he said to me. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to say what, because he probably gets that all the time. I'm not going to be one of those guys. But what'd you say, you know, or something like that. So I just went, yeah. Thinking that whatever he said, I'll just agree with it. And he just gave me this look like, and just walked on. So I don't know what, I still to this day don't know what he said to me. But whatever it was, yeah, was not an appropriate response. And that was my conversation with Ozzy Osbourne. Something indecipherable to me, and then yeah as a response, and him looking confused and waving, walking off. Good times. Offspring, Smash. Now this had been out for a little while, but the reason that Offspring always reminds me in my first year of radio was because this was I talked about being backstage, Ozzfest. That was a couple of years later. This was the first time I was ever backstage at a concert. Now I've talked about this story before in a different video about concert experiences, but I did not say which band I was talking about. I said, I'm not going to say the band. This is the band, Offspring. That's all I'm going to say. Not going to repeat the story. You have to watch that video if you want to hear the story about me and my first backstage. I will just say that the band allegedly that I might have been talking about could have been the Offspring. Okay. Mad Season and Above. Now this is the band that's made up of a bunch of the Seattle guys at the time. Of course, Lane Staley is the vocalist on this, but it also features Mike McCready on guitar. Barrett Martin from Screaming Trees does the drum, which this has a great drum sound on it as well. I love this was like the last of the great drum, eras where the drums were nice and clear before they were muddied up. I mean, some of the drums had been muddied up at this point, like Pearl Jam's 10 album. I hate the drum sound in that. But this is nice and clear. Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees actually does vocals on a couple of these songs as well. The big one we played all the time off this was called River of Deceit, and it was so slow and just down mood and just the river of deceit flows down, down, oh, down. It would just bring the station to a screeching halt. But the story I have with that song was, well, first of all, my third or fourth day on the air. Again, I'm working overnight on the weekends. Third time on this, like my second week. So like my third or fourth shift. I get, yay, a call. Now, if you're wondering why the audio just dropped there, and you're wondering what kind of call? I can't say it on YouTube. But it starts with an S and ends with an E and has a C in the middle. Yeah, that word. So I get a guy who's claiming he's going to do that. He's in tears. And this was back before the internet was everywhere, and you couldn't just go on social media, or you couldn't just whatever, and people would call radio stations when they just wanted to talk to people. We were like bartenders. You just call up and just talk to the DJ. And the overnight guy, you get people that are up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. This guy was all upset because he had signed up for the Army and did it as kind of a thing without thinking, and the next morning was when he was supposed to be reporting for duty or, that kind of thing, whatever it was, leaving or whatever. And he is all upset, and he's telling me that he is really thinking about himself. And I talked to this guy for probably 2 hours on the phone and got him to calm down, got him to, whatever, and I'm hoping that I don't know what happened to him. I'm hoping that he went to the Army and has a great life now and whatever. But I talked to him and got him to calm down, got him to, get out of that mode, and then talked to him for about another hour just about music and stuff like that to try to get his mind off of it. And then we just ended the conversation on a good note. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'm not a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist. I don't know what I'm doing. I just got people calling me saying that they're going to themselves. And I crying, And this was a guy, it wasn't like, like a little kid cry. I mean, this sounded like a guy who was really seriously, very much on the edge. So, it was, my first week in radio had a lot of things going on that was just like, wow, right into the trial by fire type of thing. I'll tell you another story coming up that's a little more lighthearted. But so that happened. And then a few months later, I get another one calling me up, but he doesn't have a big long story about whatever. He's just got a request. Can you play Mad Season, River of Deceit? It's the last thing I want to hear before myself. I'm like, excuse me? I just need to hear Mad Season, River of Deceit one more time. I'm going to commit, and I just really want to hear that song one more time. And I'm just like, okay, is this for real? Is this guy just wanting to hear this song and, just coming up with whatever? And, and it was some stupid thing. So I'm just trying to, what's going on, man? What do you think? I don't want to talk about it. I don't care about discussing it. I'm not trying to be talked down or looking for attention. I just want to hear that song one more time. And then I'm going to do it. It's like, click. And it's like, oh, shit, he just hung up. So, I'm not playing River of Deceit. So I look down on the music log, and sure enough, I remember pulling the CD to get ready to play. And I'm like, sure enough, there it is. 5 songs later, River of Deceit coming up. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot play that. I can't. I mean, what if this guy's serious? And then can you imagine somebody calling a radio station and you're going to play the song now? Oh yeah, sure, I'll get that right on for you, sir. Boom, there. Hey, to the guy who's going out, who's going to himself. Here's Mad Season, River of Deceit. I don't really talk like that on the radio, but, just doing the cheesy DJ voice. But can you imagine? Here it is now. Crank it up. No. So I write a note on the music log, you know, skipped this song, you know, because I had a guy that called and said he was going to, you know, and so I didn't want to play this thinking that I was giving him the green light to do it. I wrote this whole long note on there. Next day I get like that, you know what, dude, if you didn't want to play this, stick to the log. You can't be skipping over, you know, heavy rotation songs like that. If it's on the log, you need to play it. You don't need to come up with some stupid story about how a guy called. I'm like, stupid story? That's what happened. And so I guess I should have played the song. But anyway, Mad Season, nice CD, very mellow. You know, if you're the kind of person that finds Alice in Chains too cheerful, Mad Season. There you go. There are some great songs on here. River of Deceit I never really cared that much for. I was like, it's just so incredibly low tempo and down and depressing. I Don't Know Anything was the other song that was on here that we played. But there's great, I'm Above's great on here. They've got a nice long instrumental called November Hotel towards the end. That's pretty cool. Long Day Gone is the one with Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees. If you ever wanted to hear Mark Lanigan of Screaming Trees on the same song as a saxophone, Long Day Gone on the Mad Season album. And then All Alone, the final track, very down, but very, very nice way to end this. It's very soft, very, you know, but I like the CD more than I thought I would, because I usually don't like the real slow whatever, but the Mad Season Above is really good. So on a completely different sound is a White Zombie, Astro Creep 2000. Discovered these guys in college, absolutely loved Les Exorcisto, Devil Music Volume 1. I mean, Thunderkiss 65 is the paramount. I know that's probably the big song that you're not supposed to like that because it's their big single or whatever, but I loved that. Black Sunshine was pretty cool. I loved Welcome to the Planet, motherfucker. I thought that was, not so much on the psychoholic slag that's like the other half of the song, but I loved the first part of that. And Thrust and just a lot of the album tracks like that. And was really looking forward to this. And again, this is one of the ones that I had, I think, before it was released, and just cranked this up for a long time. I really, really liked White Zombie. And another thing, and I keep saying this, but it's true, one of the things I loved about them was their drum sound. They changed drummers, actually, on this one. But the big one we played was More Human Than Human. We did that. God, we played that thing to death. And I didn't really like that one as much because of the more of the industrial kind of drum loopy kind of, you know, kind of sound. But yeah, Supercharger Heaven was the big one on here that I loved, and Electric Head Volume 2. And this has just got so many great tracks on it. Blood Milk and Sky is just this weird kind of that wraps up the album. But I'm definitely more of a fan of the faster White Zombie. The faster, the better. Supercharger Heaven, like I said, that's the speed. It's got to be. Thunderkiss 65. Not so much the, you know, the I don't like the mid-tempo White Zombie. Rob Zombie kind of changed his vocal styling here, too. It became more of a it kind of like that, where the Sexorcisto stuff was more like demonic sounding. I really liked that sound a lot more, but this was pretty cool too. And like I said, I used to play that all the time. So some of these things, like I know the album, the radio stuff so much more than I know the album tracks. But that White Zombie CD, I played that all the time. But yeah, look, Astro Creep 2000. Neil Young. The thing about Neil Young is he puts out so many albums. It's like Willie Nelson. He puts out so many albums that you always can know where you were. You know, like there's always a Neil Young album that you can put with some kind of big event in your life. Like that was the Neil Young album that was out at the time. For my first year in radio, it was Mirror Ball. This is the one where he teams up with Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam is the backing band, pretty much. And it's a Neil Young album with Pearl Jam, but they were not allowed to be credited on the album. Look, I still have the hype sticker. See, I was saving hype stickers back in 1995. I was a little ahead of the game there. But yeah, kind of a cardboard thing. I always definitely preferred the jewel boxes to these cheap cardboard things. You really got to take care of these or they fall apart. And that's the thing about my CDs. I have taken care of these. I don't have scuffs and scratches and whatever on these. And it's kind of like, you know, I've said this before in videos. I don't really care that much about 90s vinyl releases. The reissues, because they don't mean anything to me. Like, I do not want a vinyl reissue of this, even though I love this album. I don't want a vinyl reissue of this. I don't want a vinyl reissue of this. These are my memories. This is the actual CD that I got before everybody could buy it, and I was so excited about that. This was the CD that it used to blast all the time, over and over again, all the way through. This was the CD that I was surprised how much I liked it. These are the actual CDs, and I've kept these in great condition, and these are my memories, and I don't want some, like, vinyl replicant of them with blown up, blurry artwork and digital sound on a record and 3 songs on every side. You gotta flip the record. This is the way I remember these. So this is the way I want to listen to these. I want to listen to them the exact same way I listened to them back in 1995. But yeah, Mirrorball, the Neil Young thing, great album. When this came out, it kind of got lukewarm kind of reviews, but I thought it was great. I really liked it. I thought he and Pearl Jam went together really well. They were calling him the godfather of grunge back in those days. Downtown was the song on here that was the single, and that was pretty much it. They had serviced Throw Your Hatred Down, but it didn't play. I mean, there wasn't any promotion behind it, so we didn't play that. But yeah, I really liked this. I think more than a lot of other people. Again, all the way through. Not just the Downtown and a couple others. I mean, start off track 1, listen to the whole thing. It's like an hour long. But if you missed out on this Neil Young, because it doesn't really get talked about a lot, I think you should pick this up if you're a Neil Young Crazy Horse fan, because Pearl Jam really nail it on that. Now, there was a Pearl Jam single that came out that had, I think Neil Young was a part of it somehow, but it was from these recording sessions, and the songs were, I know the song we played was called I Got Id, which I didn't really like that song, but yeah, I mean, Neil Young, Mirrorball, great, awesome. Ooh, yeah, Encomium, a tribute to Led Zeppelin. This is called a CD test pressing of this, which is odd, but so yeah, this has 4 Non-Blondes doing Misty Mountain Hop. It has Duran Duran doing Thank You. It has Big Head Todd and the Monsters doing Tangerine, which is actually not too bad. The Rollins Band with 4 Sticks. Never the Bride going to California. This is ridiculous. Hootie and the Blowfish, though. Out of all those, what do we play? What's the single that they're pushing to radio? Hootie and the Blowfish, Hey, Hey, What Can I Do? You know, the B-side that was repopularized when the box set came out, you know, because it was never on an album before. I think it's the other side of Immigrant Song. But yeah, Hootie and the Blowfish doing Hey, Hey, What Can I Do? And then followed that up with Stone Temple Pilots doing Dancing Days. People would call up and request that shit. And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. Hey man, can you hear Hey, Hey, What Can I Do? Oh yeah, we'll definitely get some Led Zeppelin on. The Hootie and the Blowfish version. Wow, get some taste in music. I mean, what the hell? I did a whole video on tribute CDs and why they are horrible. Yeah, my first experience with one of those and people actually calling up wanting to hear, no, I want to hear Stone Temple Pilots Dancing Days. Well, you know what? There's people in hell wanting ice water, and it's not going to happen. Of course, it did happen because we have to play what's on the music log. And I just want to touch on that really briefly, too. People would ask all the time, do you guys get to play whatever you want? The answer to anybody that has ever worked in radio is obviously no. In a market like Springfield, Illinois, at that time, there were a couple of request slots each hour for overnight and for late night, like late in the evening. But other than that, and those went away like later on. Other than that, you followed a music log. And that's not like, oh man, I remember back when they... No, you remember back when they told you they weren't following a music log. People have been following music logs since 1977. Now, the early days of FM, like in the late 60s and early 70s, there were like AOR stations that were not following music logs, and they would play a whole album in the middle of the day, and they would just play all these weird album tracks, and that's why people love full albums of the early 70s. Once 1977, 78 hits, it's music logs, pretty much. And if you're in the 80s and it's one of those classic rock stations that they started coming out with in the mid 80s, that's a total music log. They were following music logs. They like to act like they weren't. I get it. Theater of the mind. Used to hear that expression all the time. But no, you follow music. I mean, radio's business, and a business is a machine, and it works because labels are promoting things, and you need promotions, and they want this song played, and you're going to play it this many times, blah, blah, blah. Someday I'll do a whole video on it, but just trust me. It's how it works.